we'll just go ahead and walk you through and introduce you to Act-On software and how we work very closely with Sugar and how the two work hand in hand together. I'm just going to walk through a few slides, not many, just to kind of give you an introduction to what marketing automation is and who Act-On is a good fit for. Harold, I'm going to go ahead and pass the controls over to Harold, and Harold will walk you through a live demonstration of Act-On for both the marketing user as well as the sales user right from within Sugar. So first of all, again, we're going to go ahead and today's topics is just going to be covering marketing automation, who is Act-On designed for, and in the demo is how marketing can attract, capture, and nurture prospects, then convert leads directly into Sugar, and how sales accesses Sugar to get real-time information, including prioritized leads and activity history. What is marketing automation? Well, marketing automation is a really broad term, and but just to try to keep it as concise as possible, marketing automation has a focus on moving leads from the top of the marketing funnel to becoming sales-ready leads at the bottom of the funnel. Prospects are scored based on their activities and then nurtured from initial interest all the way through to the sale. There's some just fun facts about marketing automation and companies that are using marketing automation today. Some things that you'll see is businesses that use marketing automation to nurture prospects experience a 451% increase in qualified leads. In turn, nurtured leads make 47% larger purchases than non-nurtured leads. 63% of the companies that are surpassing their competitors use an integrated marketing automation system. Companies that invest in marketing automation solutions see 70% faster sales cycle times and a 54% improvement in quota achievement. And 78% of successful marketers cite marketing automation as being most responsible for improving revenue contribution. Now, when it comes to Act-On marketing automation, what does it do? Basically, it integrates all the key marketing functions into a single platform. So email and forms and landing pages and website visitor tracking and so forth. It really simplifies the process. It reduces time to launch campaigns. It's really easy. Everything's right in one place. It allows you to take control of your campaigns. You can provide real-time prospect behavior insights to your sales team. So right from within Sugar, your sales reps are going to have some very key insight into what the prospects are doing. And then we, of course, have a native integration with Sugar that's out of the box and it's bidirectional. Now, who is Act-On designed for? Act-On is designed primarily for small and mid-sized companies across all verticals. We have companies from really, really small to very large. But really our sweet spot is the small and mid-sized customer. Companies with small marketing teams. It could be one-person marketing team, it can be a 10-person marketing team, 15-person marketing team, no problem. We're really designed for those smaller marketing teams. Also, lines of businesses within large enterprises. You'll notice down below there's a few of our customers. Progressive Insurance is one of our customers. Cisco is one of our customers. They're large enterprises and they're lines of businesses that are using Act-On to help them with their marketing efforts. Small marketing teams with big ambitions and limited resources. So you need to get things done quickly. You don't have high IT resources and so forth. Also, companies looking for a simple yet robust marketing automation system that they can roll out quickly. They want to avoid excessive costs and long implementation timelines. So literally, most customers with Act-On can have it up and running in just a matter of a couple of weeks. It's not months, it's weeks. Act-On, according to the Forrester Wave report that was issued this year, this is an independent report, Act-On was rated as a leader in the 2 quadrants that they reported on. So when it comes to small marketing teams, Act On was in the leaders quadrant. When it came to large enterprises, Act On was in the in the leaders quadrant as well. Act On was the only company, marketing automation company, to be a leader for both enterprise and SMB per the Forrester Wave report. Act On for Sugar. Now, when it comes to our Sugar integration, we integrate with Sugar 5.5 and above. Again, it's out of the box, it's in the easy integration, and Harold will walk you through and show you how that integration is done. It's very simple. You don't need to get IT or anyone involved. It's simple to do. It's out of the box, and it's bi-directional, as I mentioned, so you can bring in your leads, your contacts, and that information is going to stay current. It's going to provide, again, useful sales tools for your reps right from within Sugar. And then also we do reporting, ROI reporting, revenue attribution reporting. We have a native AdWords reporting integration so that you can report on the revenue driven from your AdWords campaigns. So it's going to be pulling that information in from Sugar as well. Now we'll just go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to Harold, and Harold again will walk you through the UI and the Act On platform and all the and the high level of what you can do from a marketing perspective with Act On and how it relates to Sugar. And then he'll jump over and show you Act On inside of Sugar from a sales user's perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and Harold, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so hopefully you guys are able to see my mouse moving around on the Act On main elements here. Can you confirm, Teresa?
Yep, we can see it. Looks great.
Okay, perfect. So to kind of start off here, just kind of lay of the land, and Teresa showed a screenshot of this on her PowerPoint presentation, but just to kind of give you a lay of the land here, what you're looking at represented now is what we consider a marketing user login or a marketing user view of the Act On platform. As Teresa mentioned, I'll definitely show you on the Sugar side of the house how a lot of the intelligence and information is kind of summarized and put in a simple, easy format for sales enablement. But we'll spend a little bit of time here on the marketing side of the house just to give you guys a sense of, kind of a high-level sense of the tool set, what you can do with it, how you can use it for lead nurturing, and then, again, passing that intelligence over to the sales team that's using Sugar. So lay of land-wise, again, this is the marketing view of the house. You have some ability here to also customize your own login view. So if you're a marketing team and you've got folks that are performing various functions, the point here is that you can customize, right, these dashlets to your own kind of look and feel, right, on a per user type of basis. So just kind of wanted to point out that it can be customized. In terms of the main kind of tactical elements of the platform, they're really right down the middle here. Teresa alluded to some of these earlier, like being able to launch email campaigns en masse, creating web forms and integrating those forms to either email campaigns or your website, being able to create landing pages very easily as well, being able to track website visitors, and we'll spend a little bit of time in here because this is kind of a key component in terms of identifying individual names that are kind of raising their hand, the ones that are interested in your products or services. Other integrations, if you run webinars with a couple of different webinar tools in the WebEx product or Citrix's GoToWebinar like we're using today, we have hook-ins into that. Automated programs is going to be key as well in terms of being able to create a series of email campaigns and being able to automate the process of sending appropriate email campaigns to folks that are actually interacting or kind of, again, as I mentioned earlier, raising their hand. So we won't go through all of these just in the interest of time. I'm going to spend kind of the first piece of it looking at website visitors just to give you guys some visual sense of what's happening in the Act On platform based on all of these tactical items you can use from a marketing standpoint in terms of the intelligence that's being gathered at the individual level. So I've jumped over to the website visitor category here, and what you're looking at represented here would be kind of high-level metrics, right? Like search terms being used to get to your website, what the referring site they're coming from before they get to the website, whether it's Google or a search engine or some other website, another backlink. Down towards the bottom of this dashboard view is really where we try to kind of categorize visitors to your web page. So before I jump into that, what Acton will do is provide a web beacon, or what we call a tracking code, for your website. This snippet of JavaScript code would be deployed across either your entire domain or key pages you want to track. And that's essentially, that snippet of code is essentially how we start filling in this data in the website visitor dashboard. Okay? As I mentioned earlier, we categorize folks as they come out to the website once that tracking code is deployed. For instance, with anonymous visitors, really what we're trying to kind of bucketize here are companies that are coming to your site. So you can see some examples in this environment here, like Cisco Systems. You'll notice that if I hover over these, there's some additional tool sets that are made available to me. I can quickly search them on Google, look them up on LinkedIn. We also have an integration with data.com for hunting for additional individuals in that organization. But the point is that we're kind of bucketizing, again, companies that are coming to your site. You can see here that we also have other categories like ISPs, right? These are folks that we consider to be anonymous. We don't know who they are yet. They may be browsing from, Starbucks or their house, but we do a reverse IP lookup and identify at least kind of where they're coming from and how many pages they're going to. Okay? But really the area we're trying to get people into is this area called known, right? A known prospect in the Acton world is someone that we've identified through marketing efforts, right? So let me just pick on one of these guys. I'll pick on the first guy in the list here, this guy William. And this is really what I wanted to share kind of at the beginning, so you can get a sense of what we're stitching together at the individual's level, prospects or customers. So just high level, what you're looking at in this example of William are some of the touch points that we're tracking inside of the Acton behavioral database. You can see here in this overview tab that we're looking at things like where he was on your website and how many site visits he's had. So we can drill into these numbers if we wanted to look specifically at the website section. So what's being represented here would be pages based on that tracking code I showed you a few minutes ago, pages on the website the person is visiting. So you can see those in date chronological order. You can also see search terms. Teresa had mentioned integration to Google AdWords, right? You can pull through the search term the individual used all the way to their behavioral profile, so you know kind of what keywords they're using to find you. We're also able to surface emails, right? So one of the core components of the platform is the ability to launch marketing emails. Those emails can be sent to lists that you import directly into the Acton platform. They could be spreadsheet-based. But more importantly, based on Sugar, they can also be sent to records that we pull in from Sugar. And I'll show you in a few minutes here how that connection, that handshake exists between Acton and Sugar, how you can kind of take advantage of it, and then again, how it all surfaces on the sales enablement side. But back to the email part of it, when you're launching emails, you can see here how when emails are sent, just visually, what the person did. For example, this guy, William, you can see visually he opened this particular email and he clicked through a link. So we can also drill down specifically to the asset if need be, but we know that he opened this and he clicked on this download link to download this particular PDF. Now as we move down the line here, if we go back to that overview tab, you'll notice there's forms. So forms can be created in Acton, as I mentioned earlier. They can be integrated to your website, but really one of the key benefits of the forms is your ability to this is one of the primary ways that we actually identify folks by name when they're on your website. Right? This one's pretty straightforward. They're actually telling us who they are. They're filling out a form, and at minimum, if we're capturing their email address, we're identifying the individual. And as we identify that individual, we'll continue to stitch together and gather intelligence on that individual. Right? So that's one way. The other way would be through email campaigning. right? When emails are launched from the Acton platform, like the example I showed you just a second ago, any link someone clicks on, an HTML link, that routes them to a resource, like your website or a landing page. Wherever they go, we add tracking wrappers around these links. So this is another primary way that we identify a guy like William in terms of stitching together this behavioral intelligence. Okay, so if I go back to that overview tab, it's really these two elements in terms of marketing campaigns that, again, identify these individuals, so we start wrapping all this information together. I briefly had mentioned the webinar integration. This is your ability to hook into webinar tools like WebEx and Citrix's GoToWebinar and start identifying people that register and or attend these online webinars. So I'll speed things up here so we can look at some of the other Sugar elements, but just to round out other touch points that we're collecting. Media assets, you have the ability to host physical media assets in a media library inside of Acton. So commonly here we see case studies, white papers, etc., that we'll produce links to, and again, you can use those to be promoted on email campaigns or even your website. We'll track that information as well. There's a concept of custom, right? And a lot of our customers use these for offline events like trade shows or, you know, even golf tournaments, that type of thing, where at the end of the day they end up with a list of potential prospects or even customers, and they load those lists into Acton. We allow you to name those appropriately and, again, still stitch that behavior to someone's individual profile. Now, there's also this All in Timeline tab, which are key, right? These two tabs allow you to look at, again, in a date stack chronological order, the sum of all those activities that I just summarized. So whether it be an email, a landing page hit, a page on your website, you know, a form registration, you can see kind of in date stack chronological order, this person's what I like to think of as digital footprint, right? Typically, this is very common where it starts with an email, they click through, they download something, and they start poking around the site, essentially. But the nice thing is all of those elements are tracked. But more importantly, if we go back to this overview tab, those touch points can be scored. So from a marketing standpoint, as folks start interacting with those elements, like an email, they click through, they go to the website, right? You can assign point values from a lead scoring perspective for those actions. So you can see this example, this guy's got a score of 112, but if we open up that number, you can see all the touch points that he touched that make up that total aggregate score of 112. Right? And so to that note, I'm going to move our guy William off to the side here, or on that note, I should say, you'll have the ability to create a set of scoring rules on the marketing side of the house that basically allow you to set the scoring weights based on those touch points. Right? So these are all changeable in terms of the touch points. Depending on the nature of your business, some of these touch points should in fact be weighted higher than lower. For example, you know, if folks actually attend a webinar like today's webinar, you know, if it's more from a prospect standpoint, you may want to bump that number of points up so that, you know, the point values add up for individuals that actually attended a webinar versus maybe folks that maybe registered and didn't attend. Okay, but this is essentially your ability to set those scoring weights at a high level, and you'll notice here at the bottom you can get very granular as well. Essentially, you can score particular media assets or particular pages on your website a higher point value as well. But the whole idea of that is so that you can surface, right, the folks that are actually raising their hand higher. The higher the score, the more touch points, you know, the more interaction they're having with some of these digital touch points. All right, so let's close out of this for just a moment here. Now, we spent some time looking at that individual in kind of just a visual sense of much of the data that's being gathered inside of the Acton platform. It's also important to know, more from a marketing standpoint, that, you know, most of the time what we're looking for is not just a guy like William, just one person. We also want to be able to create groups of individuals, right? So in terms of being able to group people like William or similar to his characteristic in the list management area, this is really the main part of the platform where your marketing lists would live. Right? So here you have the ability to create what we call dynamic segments. Right? So if we look at, for example, a list that you might upload, we'll talk about importing data from Sugar in just a few minutes, But just at a high level, in terms of being able to isolate people inside of Acton from a marketing standpoint, you'll have the ability, again, to create these segments. And just to give you kind of a visual here in terms of how these segments work, there's a couple of high-level categories that you can start isolating people by. Number one is the profile section. Think of profile as the stuff you know about your customers or prospects. These would be the data demographic or profile attributes that we might pull in from Sugar or that you upload into the Acton platform. So as an example, we can isolate people by, let's just say title. And maybe we're looking for people with, CMO in their title, as an example. Maybe we're looking for marketers. Right? You can see here that we can add additional profile elements if we'd like to continue to filter down. But more importantly, what we have the ability here is to do it by behavior. Right? If you think back to the example, the visual example I showed you of William, number one, we can set a timeline, right, a rolling timeline, let's say the last 30 days. But this drop down here represents those tracked actions that I started with. So this is, again, your ability to start grouping people. If we're looking, for instance, for not only CMOs, but also we want to make sure that, maybe they've downloaded particular media assets. We can do it on an absolute number. And maybe I want to make sure they've downloaded at least 2 media assets from my website. But more importantly, we can get very granular here and say, well, actually, I want to pick and choose the media assets. Maybe I want to make sure he's picked out this and maybe even this data sheet. Right? So now we're creating a very targeted list of individuals here. We're creating one based on something we know about that individual, demographic data, but also behavioral data that Acton's collecting in the Acton database. Right? So this might be, for example, a segment on chief marketing officers, downloaded CMO data sheet, for example, or a white paper. In the last 30 days. So if we were to save that, that'll create kind of a child list of this master list. And it's really that simple to create groups of individuals. So we're looking at a parent list, and now we're targeting a group of individuals. So you can see that we've got 30 some odd people in this list that we can easily target. So right off the bat, we could, if we wanted to, we could just send that person or that group of individuals an email. More commonly, though, what we see here, really from a marketing standpoint, is to start automating these emails. Right? So we've just taken a quick look at the ability to segment individuals in a list off of any given list, or even segment of a segment, right? Kind of a child list of a child list to really narrow the focus of who we're targeting. Typically what we see here on the marketing side, if I go back to the home screen, are the use of automated programs. Right? This is what I alluded to earlier in terms of being able to automate email communications to groups of individuals. Right? So that ability to group people based on, again, demographic and or behavioral data. If you look at it from an automation standpoint, we'll just take a quick look at this visual example so you get a sense of how this works. So a program flow like you're seeing here can be set up on the marketing side of the house, right, in terms of communications, email communications specifically. The way this works in Acton is you can see here on the left there are a series of vertical buttons, right, and it's as simple as clicking, holding, and dragging into the workflow on the right. And then you can define, for instance, the message that goes out in this stage of the program. But before we kind of dig into this, I'll just give it to you guys at a high level. Before we dig into this piece of it, the way we kind of identify, well, who's going to get these communications is in this General Settings tab. You have the ability to identify what we call the source people, or a program source list. And this is where you can hunt the entire database and pick the appropriate group of individuals. So in that Chief Marketing Officer example, we could pick that group of individuals are qualifiers for this program. And then we can easily set up a program flow, right, and set up the appropriate cadence in terms of when these communications go out, how long we should tell Acton to wait before the next communication goes out. But most importantly, in terms of these automated programs, is the ability to set what we call conditional branching. This is where a lot of the automation takes place. So these conditional branches, let me just make this a little bit more realistic. Let me remove this piece of the workflow. But in this example, a pretty simple example, but it's effective in that, those chief marketing officers, we're going to send them an email, right? And then we're going to allow them to digest that for, let's say, a week, or maybe it's a couple of days. You would define the actual wait step here. But then we add in a conditional branch. If some of those CMOs actually open the email, they're going to get this email, a much more targeted email with maybe a download to a product data sheet. Now, if they don't meet this condition, meaning they don't interact with the email, they'll just continue to drip down this program, and they're going to get, another email in this step here. Actually, it's down here: second communication, no action taken. So maybe we send this email out with a different subject line to get them to interact with it. But the point is that you can start branching folks off into different communication channels in these workflows based on any of that behavioral tracking that you saw in the William Taylor example, right? Whether he went to the website, opened the email, clicked on it, you have the ability to, again, create the flow and the cadence and amount of communication to those lists that you create inside of the marketing list area. Okay. So this is very commonly used, again, at leveraging those marketing lists in terms of segmentation on the marketing side of the house. Teresa, I'm not sure how kind of deep we want to go on the marketing side of the house, or if we want to spend, the majority of the time, looking at the sugar side in terms of this summary. I don't know if you have a sense of what else we should cover more on the marketing side with Acton?
Yeah, I think it would be really helpful to show the integration points for sugar inside of the marketing house, and then to just go ahead and jump over into SugarCRM and show them the sales users' capabilities.
Sounds great. Yeah, great point. So basically, as far as the integration to sugar is concerned, right, there's a connector section inside of Acton that allows us to hook into many, many software applications, including, of course, sugar. So Teresa had mentioned, we have integrations with various versions of sugar, and it's very straightforward. We simply have you enter some login credentials like you would normally enter into sugar into this section, and essentially what this does is it establishes the handshake, right, between Acton and sugar. One of the main elements of that handshake is done right back in that marketing list area. So if we go to this list management icon here, that then allows you to bring in, through this sugar logo, record and record information from sugar. So this is a key part of the integration in that, for example, I can bring in, my sugar contacts. And just to take you a bit further down the workflow, if I'm bringing in sugar records, in this case contacts, from my sugar environment, this next piece of the workflow, through that connector I just showed you, would then go hunt and fetch for all of the field variables tied to contact records. So the way we've set this up in Acton is really more from a marketer's view. You can see represented here some fields, right? These would be representative of any of the standard fields in sugar, as well as any custom fields you add to the record level. So what we allow you to do here is pick and choose the appropriate fields that you need inside of Acton for the purpose of segmenting, right? Going back to that segmentation example, if we picked these fields just as an example, these would be available in the drop-down to start isolating people into those segments. Right? You can pick all of them if you want. Most of our customers pick just the key ones they need for the purpose of marketing. Okay. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here, once these records are brought in, we're going to end up with some lists that look like this, right? The parent list itself will have a little sugar logo next to it that just indicates that we brought these records in from the sugar environment. But it's also important to know that these lists should be updated, right? So as changes are happening on the sugar side of the house, we want to make sure it gets updated in Acton because we've got some segments created. So here we allow you to create a sync setup and schedule this so that, one, we get net new data from sugar, about those individuals, if there's changes to their profile, for example, or more importantly, if there are new records, right, that we don't know about in Act-On, we want to go ahead and pull those into from Sugar into Act-On. Now, our approach in terms of pulling is very similar to what you saw in the initial workflow. We typically would want to add net new records in from the from Sugar into Act-On, but then again, you also have the ability to control, as typically it's the sales team, but as changes are being made to those records in Sugar, again, these are the levers. You can pick and choose the ones that are appropriate to be updated when Act-On goes and refreshes these lists. Now, on the push side of the house, when we go to push information back to Sugar, our recommendation here is it's a very unobtrusive approach, right? We recommend only updating that Act-On lead score, right? So when we look at this inside of here, we actually would typically only recommend this field be updated, right? Going back to those touch points and the aggregate score people build up based on interactions, they're going to end up with a lead score. So we recommend updating that lead score, through this scheduled process. The logic here, and I'll show you in just a couple of minutes when we look on the Sugar side of the house, is that allows the end users in Sugar, the sales representatives, for example, to be able to prioritize those individuals they should be spending time with based on, how much interaction they're having with those digital touch points. But really the most important piece here is that this function can be scheduled. So you'd want to set a schedule. We typically see this done at least once a day, at some point in the middle of the night. You can do this on an intraday basis as well, 12, 8, all the way down to every 4 hours if need be. We don't commonly see that, but you could go down as often as every 4 hours in terms of this function. Okay, so that can be done at both the lead and contact level. Just a couple of other things that I'll cover here. One other thing I'll cover in terms of getting information directly into Sugar is your ability to create web forms. And we haven't really spent much time here, but essentially in terms of how the marketing team can build forms, right, integrate those either through email campaigning or to the website. But what I wanted to highlight here is the ability to take people that fill out the form and get them over to Sugar instantaneously. So this function here, if configured on a form, allows people that fill out the form, again, to get piped directly over to Sugar and created or updated in the Sugar database. So this is a real-time function. There's no scheduling function here. This happens on a real-time basis as folks fill out this form. Okay. All right. So we'll jump over now. I think I'll switch gears on you guys so you can see how this intelligence is, we haven't really, we've only really touched the surface in terms of the various tool sets on the marketing side of the house, but I know that we're limited in terms of the time we have today. So I wanted to make sure that I spent some time on the Sugar side to give you guys a sense of what is exposed in Sugar, right? Of all of that intelligence gathered through marketing campaign and efforts, how it's summarized on the Sugar side of the house. So I just moved my tab over to a Sugar environment. And you'll notice here right off the bat, if we look at, for example, this leads list, you'll notice there's a score next to each person. Right? So this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier in terms of being able to prioritize people that actually have a score, right? If they're higher, that means they've had more interactions versus lower. So it allows the sales team members from a sales enablement standpoint to really, again, focus in on the ones that they should. So if we take a look at one of these individuals, I'll just pick the first guy in the list here, and dig into that person's record, we know that this guy Jordan, for instance, has a score of, it was 174, I think it was. But notice as well, when we dig into his record, that there are some Act-On elements in here. These are dashlets that, as part of the Act-On integration, that we'd have you install in the Sugar environment. So these dashlets contain sales enablement information. So right off the bat, you can see at a high level what this person has interacted with. But more importantly, you see this link here allows the sales representative to click on the link and pull up that person's behavioral profile. So this is very similar to the marketer view of what we call a known prospect. right? We can see this guy Jordan's score and what made up the score. We even have the ability to drill into what he's interacting with, emails, pages on our website, right? And even have the ability to drill into, right, the content as well. If marketing is typically sending this email, I may not know on the sales side what it even looks like, but I know Jordan interacted with it. And here I can drill all the way down to the asset. So when I reach out to him, when I have a conversation, right, I know that, hey, it looks like you downloaded our 7 best practices for developing, killer marketing content, right? It's exposing all the way down to the asset level to the sales team members that intelligence. This is really the key, right? The activity history that's tracked in Acton being surfaced through this dashlet and through this pop-up, basically, and enabling the sales team with this level of intelligence is really the key. So here they can see it in a high level, again, in this dashlet view. Most of our customers would look at this because it has the drill down capability all the way, again, down to the asset. Now, there's also an element you might notice on this dashlet to be able to send an email. Right? This is also an important piece in that from a sales enablement standpoint, this send email allows me as a user in Sugar or a salesperson to actually generate an email to Jordan. Well, why is that important? Well, this allows me to, one, go ahead and align it directly to the individual, but more importantly, this is an Acton trackable email. So when I send him this email, let me just draw from a template just in the interest of time here. So when I send him, for example, this email, and I use Acton to send this email, that intelligence in terms of whether he opened or clicked would then be part of his overall activity history. So even though I'm not in marketing, I'm in sales, typically what happens is marketing would set up templates for sales, right? And you saw me just draw from a template that marketing might have set up. So there's not really much I need to do other than just send this email to Jordan. Now, once I send it, again, because it's being sent through the Acton platform, the sales team members will, again, have the ability to look at the activity history to see, actually, if Jordan, I sent the email, let's say today, maybe look at it later in the day or tomorrow, I can see whether he opened it and or clicked through. So again, I can see all those emails that marketing sent en masse, plus my own emails from a sales enablement standpoint in terms of how customers and or prospects are interacting with those communications. Okay. So this is really the heart of it in terms of the activity history. I'll jump back to the home page here and talk about one other concept that I think is important from a sales enablement standpoint, and it's a concept of what we call hot prospects. This is another dashlet that we definitely recommend as part of our package into Sugar that sales team members can leverage. And really the difference between the two, you can see I had a leads list with a bunch of scores, and then I have a separate section with people here in this dashlet. Really the difference is that the hot prospects can be configured. Right? So more from an administrative standpoint, we can configure, number one, how many records show in this dashlet. Right? We have it set to 10 here, but you can go all the way up to 20. How much activity, or how far back are we looking in terms of that person's activity history as it relates to Acton touch points? Right? Do we want to say, hey, it needs to be today, it needs to be a week ago, all the way back up to 2 months, and what the minimum lead score should be in order for the person to show up in this hot prospects box. So again, the idea here is that you can configure the timeline, the minimum score, and the number of records that appear in this box, again, helping the sales team from a marketing standpoint prioritize who they should be focusing in their time on. All right.
Harold, I just thought maybe add to that from a hot prospects perspective. From a sales perspective, what it does is it lets the salesperson know who the hottest leads are, who are the most engaged leads, who have had the biggest increase in lead score over a certain period of time. So as he showed the dates, if it's over the last 3 days, I want to know who's had the biggest jump, who's in the last 3 days. So it's lead score and recency, which is an important combination.
Yep, exactly. All right. So that's kind of it in terms of
Rita and Howard, thank you so much.
Sure.
Do we have any closing comments from you guys?
Yeah, I can just let me just go ahead and take the presenter back real quick. Or can you make me the presenter, Harold?
Let me see if I can do that. Yes.
Just pull up one little quick slide, and then just so you see here. So just wanted to kind of go through how Act-On works. We make it try to make it as easy as possible for our customers to engage with us. Our terms are offered in month-to-month or annual for a discount. As you can see, everybody gets a designated customer success manager as part of the program. So that's for life as a customer of Act-On. And our pricing really starts at a pretty low price at $500 a month. So again, try to make it as easy as possible for people to walk into marketing automation. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Of course, mention Levementum. We work very, very closely with Holly and her team. So, but be more than happy to drill into it deeper for you guys. I think that's it, Holly. Unless anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to take questions.
Wonderful. I don't have any questions in the question box, so I think what we'll do is end it here and give everybody about 10 minutes back in their day. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Teresa at the Act-On team, and we'll make sure you get whatever information you need. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.